in that vein, prisons wouldn't work either. Like, we might as well just kill people.
Yeah.
If it's edible, it's going in my mouth. Oh, this is a delicious sausage.
Juicy. Yeah, on its own.
Okay. But I think that's because I'm not a big sausage fan, so.
Yeah. I beg to differ.
Some would disagree.
Hello and welcome to Lead by Example, the podcast discussing current social justice issues.
Before you listen to this podcast, we just want to give you a quick disclaimer.
We are in no way an authority on these issues.
Our intention is to open healthy discussions without being insensitive.
Due to the length of this podcast, we are aware that we may not cover every intersection of injustice.
However, our aim is to build an understanding of all types of social issues which are intrinsically connected so that they can be better addressed.
We encourage anyone listening to this podcast to take part in the discussions and feel free to ask any questions or suggest topics to us. We hope you enjoy today's podcast.
Hello.
Hi
That's really
guys,
loud.
welcome back. Oh. We've got it's a totally different setup today. So Lily and I are not in the same room for the first time in a long time for filming. Because, well, you can explain.
I've stop doing that for miles. I've moved to York to do a master's, so that's why we are no longer in the same place. And so yeah, we're trying out a new system, but it might change a bit because this is the first time we're trying it. So we'll see.
Yeah. So, congratulations and celebrations. That's the song, isn't it? That's how it goes.
Yeah.
We're united, everyone. What is your month anniversary? Well,
Oh right, yeah.
For a
No,
month.
it wasn't today. It was on the 17th. We've actually missed it.
That's more than a month, really.
Yeah.
That's like
A month and a week.
5 weeks.
Woo.
Wow. How are you finding it?
Good. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's made me like cooking more, weirdly, even though it's almost harder. But I think that's why I enjoy it more, because it's like a challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm loving it. I'm really
I feel like it brings
enjoying
more variety.
Yeah, weirdly, I'm really enjoying the like nutritional side of it, like making sure that I'm getting like all of my vitamins in and like finding new foods and stuff that have got like lots of, I don't know, B12 in or like whatever.
Yeah. I feel like it's like how do I describe it? Like, it's a new way of looking at food.
Yeah.
And like it's like suddenly you start to get lazy sometimes, I think, when like you're omnivorous, whatever the word is, yeah. And then when you become vegan or vegetarian or whatever it is that you change your diet, even if it's just like when you do keto or all of that stuff, it's like it's a new way of like looking at food and like investigating and trying new things.
Yeah, and you're almost like investing in yourself by doing it, so then you're more motivated to like keep it up. Oh my god, can you hear my stomach?
No.
Okay, good. My stomach literally like is talking about food.
So you've been eating well then? You've been cooking?
Yeah. Up until like the past maybe 4 days, I've been doing quite well. Pasta bakes have been my go-to. If I can't be bothered to do anything snazzy, I'll whack it in a pasta bake. Because do you know, they're just great. I could rant about how great pasta bakes are for ages. You know,
Let's do podcasts on pasta bakes.
You can chuck in like as many vegetables as you want. You can put in any kind of vegetables in there, and it still works. And sometimes I whack in a meatball or two to mix it up a bit.
Fancy.
Yeah, very nice.
I love that. I think though that's what's good about being vegan, is like you start to just test the boundaries of actually what's acceptable as a meal. Like when I, for my birthday meal, had chips and baked beans because like they didn't have anything else vegan on the menu, so I literally just had chips and then baked beans on top. It's like, oh, delicious. Like never in another time would I have chips and baked beans as a meal, but you know, yeah. You gotta get creative sometimes.
You gotta do what you gotta do. So here's a question I get quite a lot about meat alternatives.
I feel like I know what you're going to ask. Go on, yeah.
In your opinion, I don't know why this has turned into an interview, but it has. What's the point in meat alternatives, basically? Rather than just eating like a purely like plant-based, inventing your own meals like curries or whatever.
Yeah, I find that question really funny because that's assuming that vegans go vegan only for one reason, which is that they don't like meat, which I don't know any... Oh, well, okay, obviously there are people who have gone vegan because they don't like meat, like they don't like the taste of it. But most vegans go vegan for 3 reasons, right? One of 3 reasons. So one is for your health, because animal products can cause, you know, bad things in you. I'm not going to go into that. 2 for the environment, because agriculture. I was going to say architecture then.
No.
Agriculture en masse is just like really bad for the environment. And 3, wait, what was it? Health. Oh yeah, and 3 for animal rights. So like to not hurt animals. So those are really the main like 3 reasons that you would go vegan. Yes, some people go vegan because they don't like the taste of meat, but I don't know many people who do, who go vegan for that reason. So it's a bit of a strange question for me. It's not that we don't enjoy eating meat, it's the fact that what the meat is. It's not like we don't like the flavour of it, it's that we don't like what concept
that means
is,
and the
right?
consequences of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to eat flesh. So get me something that tastes like flesh because I like the flavour of it.
Yeah. But that's the thing, it's not
so,
it's not that we don't enjoy the taste of it. It's that like just for whatever reason we've gone vegan, we don't morally or within ourselves want to be eating a dead animal. Like,
yeah,
it's as simple as that. But
yeah,
and sometimes, and obviously, like, I understand that a lot of the meats and stuff are quite processed, and I'm not saying that people should, you know, build a diet fully on like meat alternatives or anything, but people have diets that are unhealthy even when they're not vegan, and I mean, meat itself isn't the healthiest thing, it's far from it. And again, it's about like balance, isn't it? And you know, you have a bit of that, you have a bit of more plant-based stuff, and you're good.
And also, for some people, that's a stepping stone towards a fully plant-based raw diet, or in whatever form it may be. So the first step would be to stop eating the meat, and the second step would then be to cut out processed foods, and eventually, like a lot of people, will go raw vegan, which is essentially eating plants that aren't cooked and aren't altered in any way. Which a lot of people believe is the best way to get your nutrients, the healthiest way, the best way to avoid diseases that are caused by the way that we treat food nowadays. So obviously, you know, like I went vegan predominantly firstly for health reasons. Then what came second? Then probably for animal reasons, and then for environmental reasons. And so when I told people that I had gone vegan for health reasons, not that I went around telling people I've gone vegan for health reasons. No. When someone came around to my house and they saw that I wasn't eating meat, and they said, "Oh, you're eating something that isn't meat. Are you vegetarian or vegan?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Oh, why are you?" And I said, "For health reasons." Just to make it quite clear that we don't go around running, not all of us don't go around running, "Oh, I'm vegan." Anyway, and I say, like, it's for health reasons because there's been a lot of research to reflect, in my opinion, that animal products can cause a lot of diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, loads of that stuff, right? So that is the reason why I want to be vegan. And then people will see me having pizza and be like, "Oh, I thought you went vegan for health reasons." Well, yeah, but I think there's quite a big difference between occasionally having a pizza or ice cream, which obviously are vegan, that are high in saturated fat or high in calories, compared to not eating a dead animal because it causes heart disease.
Yeah, and also
cancer.
Yeah, and also a vegan pizza compared to a regular pizza, or vegan ice cream compared to regular ice cream, although they do have saturated fats in, it's still lower, and it's still like lower in calories and everything when you compare it to its equivalent.
Yeah,
that's not vegan. Because I was having this conversation with my mum. We were talking about how good vegan ice cream was, and I said like a throwaway comment like, oh yeah, it's probably just as bad for you though. And so then we went and like looked on the thing, and it was like a lot less, and I think we were just looking at calories, but it was a lot less calories than regular ice cream would be. And also there's from my book there's no cholesterol in vegan. Like in a vegan diet there is zero cholesterol whatsoever, because cholesterol is something that only comes from animal products. Bad cholesterol is only something that comes from animal products. Obviously, like in our bloodstream or whatever, this isn't a science lesson, but we produce our own cholesterol based on like what we eat. So if you eat more saturated fats, you're likely to produce more cholesterol yourself. But from what we're putting into our systems, if you cut out animal products, you cut out cholesterol, full stop. And so like for health reasons, it makes sense. Even if that's the only thing, there's a whole myriad of like reasons like of health, like why it's a good thing to do, but that alone cuts out so much, I guess, danger of disease and like illness and stuff. But yeah, it's funny you say that, because I did it like exactly the opposite way to you. So my main reason, well, when I first went vegetarian, the sole reason was environment. Like that was the main reason. And same with veganism to an extent. But I think the jump from vegetarian to veganism was then that extra animal rights, animal welfare element. And then only since I've been vegan has the health thing come into play and stuff. But I think for most people that do go vegan, it's like a culmination of all three things. It's not like just one or the other, but it's usually one thing that kind of pushes you into it, and then you learn more about the other things.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely one that's kind of stronger than the others that causes you to investigate it more.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's like a win-win, isn't it? It's like a...
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a bit sad how like, I definitely felt this. I don't know if you felt this, but I felt almost as though I had to validate my vegetarianism and veganism by saying, oh, it's just to do with the environment, rather than caring about animal rights or animal welfare. Because, if you said it was for that, there's like a stigma around it, which I just don't understand, because it's like people are like, oh, you care about the animals, oh, poor little pigs or whatever. But do you know what I mean? I'm communicating this very badly, but like,
no,
it's almost people take you more seriously if you do it for either health or for environment, and they take you less seriously if you do it for animal welfare. Which is why now, if people ask, I definitely say more about the animal welfare, because I don't want that to be stigmatised anymore, because I think that's a perfectly valid, and in fact I think that's the most valid reason about why people should would ever go vegan or vegetarian. I think that's the most important, well, maybe not, but maybe that along with the environment for me is the most important. But yeah, I don't know why it's got such a stigma.
My immediate reaction is probably because I feel like liking animals and valuing their feelings and stuff like that it's encouraged in children. So it's very much when you're a kid, you learn about all the animals, and kids love animals and that sort of thing. And then I think that has almost become an image of if you like animals, then you are essentially a child.
Okay.
which I wouldn't say like it specifically is that, it's not like set in stone, but I feel like that's what the sort of image is. Like, if you love animals and like, you know, you care about animals, then it's almost like you've kept that childlike side of you.
Right.
And also, oh no, wait, I was going to say something else, but I've totally forgotten what it was. Oh, okay, so I feel like a lot of people fake not care. This is such a controversial opinion, but I feel like a lot of people fake not liking animals to make themselves seem like more tough. Like, I think it almost comes into the same vein as like where I don't want to cry because it makes me look like the rest of the women that cry. And so that will make me seem like the rest of the women, to simplify it hugely. And it's almost like that sort of like behaviour where you don't want to seem like you care about animals because it will make you look like you're like all the other people who care about animals, who are like essentially stigmatised, like, oh, those like
airy
young
fairy,
people,
like,
you know?
yeah.
And it's also, I think, I might be reaching here a little bit, but it also, I think, kind of comes into women like animals. It's a feminine.
Okay. Well, just
trait.
caring in general is a very feminine, like, for some reason or another. Like, you just have to look in the caring sectors of work to see that it's like very, very female dominated.
And weak is another word that I would say is attached to that sort of like, if you're caring, then you're seen as weak.
Right.
Which is why I really appreciate, oh my god, I've just realised I've got barbecue sauce on my hand. But yeah, which is why I really appreciate the men who publicise that they are vegan, because I feel like it's very much the image of a vegan is a white social justice warrior girl who, you know, loves the animals but doesn't really understand what it means, and then goes after people who do eat meat, and you know, there's just a lot of that, I think. So that's why, like, when I tell you to watch the
do we run into the issue of praising men for doing things that women have always been doing?
Yeah.
Not that women have always been doing veganism, but like, it just, you know.
Yeah, giving them credit for like doing the bare minimum. Yeah, I agree. But yeah,
sorry,
I mean,
what were you saying about a documentary?
Everyone needs to watch the documentary Game Changers.
I still haven't watched it. I really need to watch it. Yeah,
because they talk about this powerlifter who, like, he's huge, like, he's obviously incredibly strong, and he reached his he started like breaking his records when he went vegan, like stuff that he couldn't do for like years. He like plateaued for so long, and then suddenly he went vegan. I mean, it could be a placebo, to be fair. I'm just saying there's a possibility, but like it's just so interesting, that documentary. But it kind of tries to break down that stigma that's attached to like meat equals manly and whatever else, you know.
I need to.
But also, it definitely, I feel like one of the stigmas with like veganism and things like that is the thing that I find quite difficult is like, you know how we were saying, I don't like when people label conspiracy theorists like too much as like, oh, all right, crazy, like conspiracy theorist, like, even though this certain thing is based on like evidence and fact and things like that. Like, I get, obviously you can go wild with conspiracy, but I don't like that stigmatizing of someone who's questioning the system all the time, like just in any way. Oh, you're questioning the system, okay. Oh, you think the government are against us, okay, like you're crazy. And it's the same way with like veganism or like holistic stuff or homeopathy, or like aromatherapy, anything that isn't like based in like mainstream science.
But do you know why? This is my theory around all of that, is because of capitalism. We like everything plays into capitalism.
No.
So if they can't profit off of it, they're gonna stigmatise it.
Yeah.
So, for example, like holistic medicine, or that's the example I've got. I don't know why I carried on. or just adding things for no reason. For example, like so holistic medicine. If people play into that, they're finding cheaper ways. They finding more independent ways of treating, minor diseases or whatever. And so they then don't need to pay into these gigantic pharmaceutical companies who spend billions of pounds creating new random drugs for all sorts. And all of the, stakeholders of the pharmaceutical companies are, politicians and people right at the top and the elite of society. And so they're investing in those companies, and then therefore they're gonna stigmatise in the media and any way they can anyone that moves off that line because they can't profit off of it.
It's like a cure for cancer. A lot of people believe that there is a cure for cancer, but it's been suppressed because the cancer, the treatment of cancer, those industries that support that are just so lucrative that it wouldn't be in their interest to find a cure for cancer. And I guess you have to be realistic about the world we're living in. Like, they're not for you. They don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to win. Like, that's just the realness of it. However, having said that, it's always important to like not totally go off the rails and be like, oh well, the whole world's against me. The
world is flat. Let's not vaccinate our children.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the post I put on Instagram stories a while ago that was like, oh yeah, of course I did because I messaged you about it. The conspiracy theorist like triangle, where it's like things that are based in evidence and fact, things that we have questions about, and then like you're going off the rails, you're off the rails kind of thing. Like it's just you've just gone with any idea and just run with it.
My seminar this week in one of my modules is on religion, so it's been some interesting reading. But it's also, I think, I hate this phrase, but it's humbled me a bit because it kind of, this is totally not to do with veganism. They started off by like talking about secular feminist views towards religion, and obviously in lots of religions there's I guess gender discrimination, and so lots of secular feminist approaches to religion are quite negative or quite critical of the like various different religions, but then from the other side it was also saying about how like there are also feminist thinkers within religions, particularly within the developing world or within, poorer communities, that have perspectives and opinions that can be almost like rampaged over, like ignored completely because of this popular secular feminist thinking about it, and how it should be just as valid to listen to someone from within that religion, if not more valid to listen to someone from within that religion who is still a feminist or who is still critical of those gender issues, but from within the religion. Because if we're just criticising religion in general, aren't we being like a little bit ignorant to perspectives and to cultural traditions and to positions? And it was just kind of stuff like that. So it did make me think about it like quite a lot, and I think I'll still be figuring out my own point of view on it for a while, but it definitely like took me back a peg, because I was kind of going down that like like I can't think of one religion that's not like, you know, problematic to me. But yeah.
It is difficult because as someone who is like a very radical, like quote unquote activist, like I feel like we are very much like heading down that strong path of basically everything. Okay, cool. Like everything I knew was a lie, so and everything is problematic. And so when it comes to like cultural traditions, obviously you know how I feel about traditions and people sticking to traditions for the sake of tradition and how problematic that can be. And so
but then the line between tradition and culture is so hard for me to like distinguish, because so much of culture is in tradition. So by discounting traditions altogether, there's quite a lot of culture within that that you might also be discounting. And I'm not saying from necessarily a Western perspective, but definitely for, I guess, non-dominant cultures, I think it's something like to be very careful about, at least. And like I think for me it's like if you are basing your misogynistic and oppressive, and there's a word I'm thinking of and I can't remember it, discriminatory kind of, like if you're basing all of those opinions and views and beliefs on the fact that your culture says that, that's where I find it difficult. So it's like I don't want to hide behind a smokescreen and say, well, I'm homophobic because I'm a Christian. Or I'm homophobic because my culture says that that's what I should be. I feel like that's like, yes, I appreciate that culture is a huge influence on people, and it's obviously like an amazing thing to be a part of a culture, but I don't ever want to accept that as an excuse of like you're therefore being oppressive to people and using your excuse of that's what my culture is. Because if we can grow up as a Christian and say, actually, I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with that, as much as we were very much brought up with the attitude of you are entitled, like you are your own person and you are allowed to like we have so much privilege, and I'm not denying that at all, but I do think that it is something that I struggle with if I hear that people are using are expressing oppressive opinions and using culture, tradition, religion, or whatever it is to fall back on,
to
almost to
validate, and then I have to accept that because I have to be respectful of your culture,
but
so
then
in that sense
but then at the same time, I think, say that, so we've got this imaginary person who's very homophobic because of their religion and because of Christianity, blah blah blah, they're backing that up. Would they not, would their opinion be more likely to change on that based on somebody like me and you who don't consider ourselves Christian, who are quite critical of it and come kind of, you know, giving facts or our version of facts and stuff to this person? Or would it be more effective if there was a feminist within the church that, you know, put work into looking into language used in the Bible, or put work into translations from the Bible and stuff, and then spoke about it from a Christian perspective? Because although we might think that we're being respectful to someone's religion while still being critical of it, if we don't consider ourselves part of that culture, part of that, you know, community, then is it really fully our place to criticize them? That's like all I'm thinking. Obviously, there's no, you know, rules on criticism, and I'm not saying I'm not critical of religions and stuff, but I certainly would be cautious to go criticising a particular individual within a certain community if I was from an outside perspective, particularly if it was from like a non-dominant community. I wouldn't feel bad criticising a white Christian from Britain or from the US. Like, because I've got the like experience of having grown up as a Christian. I'm white. I'm also Western. Like, I wouldn't have an issue with anyone criticising me if they were in the same, you know, similar situation to me. But it's more about, there's so much more than just the one thing that you're criticising when like power dynamics and race and class and all of that other stuff plays into the mix.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like criticising people from Jamaica if they have specific, like, particularly homophobic opinions, because you then need to trace that back in, like, to what sort of, like, influence they have had and why that is the case. And obviously Christian fundamentalism is a huge factor in that, and that has obviously come from them being colonized by white Christians. So it's definitely, it's very easy for us to be like, well, you should just know better, when actually, and this is what we talk about all the time, like, we're always trying to be a voice for the voiceless. Like, if, you know, there is a homeless person on the street and someone's saying, well, they're homeless because it's their own decision, because they take drugs and that's why they're homeless. That's why they're homeless. Sorry, I just like repeated myself. And we're obviously saying, like, there's a reason why that is the case. There's a reason why they had to turn to drugs. There's a reason why maybe they weren't mentally stable enough to deal with that situation. There's always a journey to that point. No one is born, I mean, some people are born with a chemical, like, what's the word? Proneness? Is that a word? To, like, taking drugs, but do you see what I mean? Like,
oh, right, yeah.
Like, yes, some of it, but it's not all like, oh, people just make bad decisions and they're all individuals. And that's something that we obviously try and fight for all the time, where there are social, cultural roots of these problems. Like, it isn't just like individual people. And like, not everyone has like free will to make their own decisions based on like none of their surroundings. Like,
and I think that's like
by that.
The important part of where we kind of stand in the situation is, like, by talking to the people around us that might have certain opinions and almost not speaking for someone that's not there, but, you know, maybe, I don't know how to phrase this, like,
reflecting
someone's, like, trying to, like, bring light to something that they might not have already considered,
and otherwise wouldn't have interaction with that sort of person, or with that culture, or whatever it is,
because then you're not going out speaking on behalf of people or
taking up space in that.
Right. But you're in your own space that you're already occupying, but hopefully, I mean, the idea is you're influencing, you know, people in your own circle, in your own life, to maybe be a bit more considerate and a bit more caring. I don't know what the word is, like a bit more, I don't know. Nice.
Nice. Yeah, I think also, like, that is definitely an easy path down to, like, stereotyping an entire culture, or like having hate, like, towards a group of people based on a few select individuals or individual instances that you've had, like, interactions that you've had with them. And that's obviously something that, like, for us is like red flag. As soon as we hear someone saying, oh, well, you know, all enter group of people here like are like this,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously automatically we're like, no, you know what, in no situation is that okay.
Yeah.
Like in no situation can you sum up an entire group
No.
or race or culture of people based on individuals, even based on 99 out of 100 of those individuals. That is not what, it's only the definition of what like defines that group of people that you can run by. So if you find issue with the fact that Christians are followers of Christ, and that is the definition of Christians, then it would make sense that would be your opinion based on that definition. But if you don't like Christians because they're homophobic, but homophobic isn't a direct requirement of being a Christian, then you can't
generalize that you don't like Christians. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that is like something I think that person, like me anyway, I have to like remind myself and like be careful that I don't go like too far the other way and have these generalizing opinions about groups of people that I see as discriminatory. Anyway, like people, so Christians is like an obvious example, and I mean, luckily, like, you know, we've both got really lovely parents who are Christians, and, you know, we know that they're not horrible, discriminating people. But it would be easy if maybe we didn't have, our parents weren't who they were or something, and to start generalising. And so I have to be careful that I don't do that with other groups of people as well. Like, for example, Republicans in America, I have a very low opinion of, and I'm sure that is, you know, well informed, but also shouldn't be generalised. Do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense today? Probably not.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like with conservatives, like there is something that I find issue with ways in a lot of conservatives present themselves and the opinions that they have, but being oppressive is not a requirement of, you know, being a conservative. And so like I think that's something that like we always have to remember. And that reminds me of I was listening to a podcast, I think it was the I Weigh podcast actually, and the guest was Dr. Ibram X Kendi, the guy who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist, right? And I haven't actually read the book. I need to read the book. But you know me, I've got a whole list of books I need to read, and they're just there on my bookshelf. And I
Come on, get to it.
But he, in his book, mentions this concept that racism is a disease and not a tattoo. So it's something that you can be diagnosed with, but actually can be cured, and it's not a permanent feature of you. You're not born with it. None of us are born with racism. None of us are born with hate. It's something that we learn, and we need to unlearn it, right? So it's like that disease that can be cured. I was talking to your mum about this actually the other day, and she obviously brought up the thing that she loves, the guy who infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan. And she said, I know, Lily always hates it when I talk about this. I was like, I know. But yeah, it's a good point, because I think like we are so quick to sum people up and generalize on other people and be like, well, they think that over there, but I'm not, enter phrase here, I'm not racist, I'm not homophobic, I'm not, do you see what I mean? So, and that is like a defense mechanism for us to be like, oh, I'm a good person, so I'm fine. It's exactly like what Layla Saad was talking about in her book, where it's that like white exceptionalism, but like tenfold, because it's in everything that we do. It's like, I'm not a Christian, and so I'm not homophobic, and I'm not, you know, and we use that as like that defense. But actually it's a lot harder and a lot more challenging to be like, I have this that I do, I have a tendency to do this, or at one point I did this and now I don't, or I do this and I need to work on this, rather than being like, well, I'm good, but those people aren't. And or it's almost like the more we push people away, like, and other them, the safer we feel about ourselves. And so yeah, so like with those things, it is definitely something I struggle with like the culture and tradition thing, because I obviously want to respect cultures, but it frustrates me so much when I think that's like, you can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
But at the same time, every single individual person has their own lived experience, and there's no way that I can pretend that I have any of those influences on me. And also, we always underestimate the impact of influences. Like, who was I talking to about this the other day? But we always underestimate the impact of touch points on us. Like, you know, when you turn vegan and you think back of all the times that you've heard about veganism or you've seen a vegan, and all of those things are huge influences on you, and just take one of them away and your journey would be totally different.
Yeah.
So it's like exactly the same thing. Like, if someone was born in a totally different country, in a totally different society, in a totally different government, with totally different family, totally different friends, a different system, there's no way to imagine what you would do in that situation, because you don't know the impact of those things. It's like where my sister has anxiety and my brother's like, oh, well, like, why don't you just tell yourself it's fine? But you haven't got anxiety, so you don't know what that's like. Oh, but if it was me, if I felt sick, I would just make myself sick. Yeah, but you don't have that, so you can't imagine what it would be like. You have no idea. Like, if someone said to me, oh, if I had a migraine, I'd just get through it, I'd be like, well, you clearly haven't had a migraine before, because you don't know what you would be like in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it is that. It's like, we need to be more empathetic, and we pride ourselves as left, liberal, activists, whatever it is that we describe ourselves as. We pride ourselves on the fact that we are so accepting and we're so understanding, and we're breaking down barriers between cultures, because we believe that in human rights, and that everyone deserves equal rights, and everyone deserves the chance to be successful, and all of that. And yet, it's very easy to then be like, well, if you're oppressive towards women, then cancelled.
Yeah.
Cancel culture.
Get out. Yeah.
So that's a
and it's also just like a very stagnant way of looking at things, I think, by like you were saying, with like labels of good and bad and discriminatory and not discriminatory, or like whatever it is, oppressor, oppressee. It's very stagnant. Do you know what I mean by that? It's just like, it doesn't leave room for movement. It doesn't capture the complexity of people's humanity. And so, like, with the Ibram Kendi, like he was saying with the tattoo versus disease. Just because someone's a certain way now doesn't mean they're always going to be that way. And I think that's like such an important part of activism, and something that activists have to be continually aware of is, we're not here to point fingers and call people out and cancel people and ruin people's careers just for the sake of it, because they're a bad person. Because at the end of the day, that's not helping the people that we say we care about, or that we say we want to uplift in society, or whatever. And it's hard not to do that, because you see, you know, somebody in the media being really hateful, and your human reaction to the hate is more hate, because you're like, they shouldn't be acting like that. That's really disgusting behaviour. They shouldn't be treating people like that. But sometimes never asking kind of what has led them to that point, and what circumstances have they been growing up in, and what information have they been being fed to get them to that perspective. And it's not an easy thing to target, because when someone's got that much hate in them, where do you start to unpack it and, you know, fix that? But you've got to start somewhere, and it can't be from a place of mutual hatred, because that's just gonna cause like a massive argument, and it's not gonna help anyone, because that person's gonna continue to be hateful, and no one's gonna be helped. The people that they're being hateful towards aren't gonna be helped. So yeah, sorry. I don't know where I was going with that.
I apologise. Oh, God's sake. Sorry. I think one very, very sensitive subject that I think we all find difficult as left people, as liberals, like as I don't know what to define ourselves as, but we will always find difficult is the current president. And well, okay, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I personally find it a lot safer and easier to deal with when I just think he's just a bad person, he's racist, he's sexist, he is like all of these things that we can, all these labels that we can put on him and drag him down and discredit him and say, well, you know, he is the problem, when we're not focusing on the system that's put him in power.
Right.
It's not
and
been
also
his
the amount
influence.
of people that support him and that have got him to where he is. It might be like, it would be impossible for me or you to target him and his hate. But if we lived in America, we might be able to target 2 people that support him and open their eyes a little bit to parts of his hate and stuff. And it's again with him, like I feel like I am quite hateful towards him because of just the amount like of exposure as well. Like he's just always in the news and stuff. But getting him out of power doesn't mean that he ceases to exist and that his hate stops or anything. But he just has less power to yield that hate.
Yeah, and I think we have focused so much on seeing this person as the president of the United States, and we've all been so taken aback, and yet Black people weren't surprised.
Yeah.
Like, we as white people think that the world is so unracist. Like, we're like, oh, you know, I mean, before he came into power, we had a black president. So they had a black
We'd
black
made
president.
it. Racism had gone.
Yeah,
Didn't
we
exist
killed
anymore.
it. So, yeah. And so we are so, like, obviously we want things to be different. And so it's almost like we're 5 steps ahead of ourselves, hoping that, you know, it's gone. But it hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the issue with like how we have chosen to for whatever reason, like I said, like be a voice for the voiceless, like fight for people and systems and societies that support people, and we're almost so focused on that goal that any positive like reflection, like, and anything that makes it seem like we have been slightly successful, we take it and we're like, it's almost like, oh, okay, good, our job's done. Like, we're good, like, finally, thank God. Like, I don't know about you, but when I voted in Croydon and that part of Croydon was Labour, I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Like, almost like, oh, I don't have to do anything now.
Yeah.
And yet that meant nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Uh-huh.
So it's important, like, not to take our eye off the ball and think like things are sorted. Like if touch wood, this president is voted out in the next election, yeah, like you said, it doesn't change the fact that there are all of these people supporting him, and there is a reason that they support him, and they feel free enough to support him. We're not targeting the cause if we're cancelling people. Yeah, so cancel culture, I find really funny because I feel like it's the easy way out. It's like the lazy way of dealing with things that we don't like, and just saying, oh, you're cancelled then. And it just reflects that idea that human beings aren't complex creatures and that we're just like either good or bad. And again, it's the othering thing. It's like, oh, if I can cancel that person for saying something wrong, it makes me feel better because I would never say that. So I think like especially in terms of things like going vegan and making those decisions for yourself, we can't use them as like badges on us and being like, oh well, I've got this and I've got this anti-racist badge and I've got this trans rights badge, and so then I don't do anything wrong to people. Like, I don't make people feel bad, I make them feel great. But it's not about that. Like, we're not fighting this fight, we're not like working towards stuff just so that we can feel better about ourselves. And cancel culture, like a few years ago, I thought was the way forward. I feel like you come through a journey. You first of all just get frustrated with everything, and then you're just like, oh no, like cancel, and you'll cancel whatever you can. And you want to sum people up as, well, if they said one thing, if someone's voted for Brexit, right, well, I know what you're like, then you must be
it's
racist,
about
you must be anti-immigrant.
Right, it's about the level at which we make assumptions about people, and particularly with cancel culture, the level at which we, like, who decides what's cancelable, like what you know, elicits being cancelled, and why, like I struggle with it because you've got the whole publicity element to it as well. So I agree that there are certain people who have a voice in the media and who have influence in the media who shouldn't necessarily have that much influence because of the things they're saying, or because they could be bringing, you know, bad opinions into very, you know, mainstream public views. But that's not to say that their entire careers should be destroyed and they should be, you know, ignored completely.
In that vein, prisons wouldn't work either. Like, we might as well just kill people.
Right. Yeah.
There's no such thing as rehabilitation then. Sorry to interrupt you, but it gives human beings no room for growth.
Right, yeah.
Essentially what you're saying is, once you do one bad thing, your life is over, you're done. You're now going to be a bad person for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then we're just basically going to end up with we're going to end up running out of people because everyone's done a bad thing.
Yeah. Everyone's done stupid stuff in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you have been able to follow this and enjoy